Lieutenant James Crawford thought he was safe when he saw the island. 8 hours in a rubber raft, dehydrated, sunburned, desperate for solid ground, any island looked like salvation. Then he saw the flag. Red circle on white background, the rising sun, Japanese territory. He had crash-landed in enemy waters, survived the bailout, survived the ocean. Now he was about to land on an island controlled by the people trying to kill him. And he had no choice. The current was pulling him toward shore. Fighting it would exhaust him. He would drown or he would land. Those were the options. Crawford chose land. And with that choice, his war changed from flying missions to surviving the next 8 days on an island where everyone except him spoke Japanese, where discovery meant execution, and where his only allies were people who had every reason to turn him in. This is the story of those 8 days. Not a story of heroic combat, a story of hiding, of depending on strangers, of navigating a culture he did not understand while trying to stay alive, of learning that in war, the lines between enemy and ally are not always clear. May 1944. The Pacific War was in its 3rd year. American forces were island hopping across the ocean, taking Japanese-held territory piece by piece, moving closer to the home islands. The strategy was working, but it was slow, bloody. Every island was a battle. Crawford was a Navy fighter pilot, F-6F Hellcat, carrier-based. His squadron was providing air support for Marine landings on Bougainville. Routine mission, strafe Japanese positions, provide cover for ground forces, return to carrier. He had done it dozens of times. This time was different. Anti-aircraft fire caught his plane on the 3rd pass. He felt the impact, heard the engine cough, saw smoke. The Hellcat was hit, not catastrophically, but badly enough. Oil pressure dropping, temperature rising, engine would not last long. Crawford radioed his position, reported the damage, tried to make it back to the carrier, but the math was against him. Distance too far, engine failing too fast. He would not make it. He had 2 choices: ditch in the ocean near the carrier and hope for rescue, or try to reach one of the islands and take his chances on land. Both were risks. Water meant sharks and exposure. Land meant potential Japanese patrols. Crawford chose land. There was an island 15 miles southeast, small, not strategically important, probably lightly defended if defended at all. He could make it there. Crash land. Hide until rescue came. He nursed the dying engine toward the island, altitude dropping, speed decreasing. The Hellcat was barely flying, more gliding than flying. But it was enough. He reached the island. Then the engine seized completely. No power, no control. Just a very expensive glider about to become a very expensive piece of reef decoration. Crawford pulled up, gained a few hundred feet of altitude, then bailed out. Parachute deployed. He drifted down toward ocean just off the island coast, hit the water hard, went under, came up sputtering, released the chute before it could drag him down, inflated his life vest, got into the emergency raft from his survival pack, and watched his Hellcat disappear beneath the waves. That was hour 0, beginning of the ordeal. For the next 8 hours, Crawford drifted. The island was close, maybe 2 miles, but current and wind were not cooperating. He paddled with his hands, made slow progress. The sun beat down, no shade in the raft, no water except the small canteen in his survival pack. He rationed it carefully. By late afternoon, he was close to shore, could see the beach, palm trees, vegetation, looked deserted, no visible structures, no people. Maybe he'd gotten lucky. Maybe this island really was uninhabited. Then he saw the flag. On a pole near the beach, Japanese flag. His heart sank. The island was occupied. He was about to land in enemy territory. He considered paddling away, trying to reach another island, but he was exhausted, dehydrated. The next island was who knows how far. He might not make it, and the current was pulling him toward this beach whether he liked it or not. Crawford made a decision. He would land, hide the raft, move inland, stay hidden until dark, then figure out how to signal American forces for rescue. Risky but possible. The raft grounded on the beach. Crawford climbed out, legs wobbly from hours sitting. He dragged the raft into the vegetation, hid it under palm fronds, checked his gear, survival knife, signal mirror, flare gun, compass, not much, but something. He moved inland, slowly, carefully, listening for voices, for movement, for any sign of Japanese presence. The island was quiet, just wind in the palms and distant bird calls. He found a small stream, fresh water. He drank deeply, filled his canteen, then continued moving, looking for a hiding place, somewhere he could observe without being seen. That is when he heard voices. Japanese, multiple people, close. Crawford dropped flat, crawled into thick undergrowth, held his breath. 3 Japanese soldiers walked past, 15 feet away, rifles slung, casual, talking and laughing, not on alert, just routine patrol. They passed without seeing him. Crawford waited until they were gone, then moved in the opposite direction, deeper into the island interior, away from the patrol routes. He needed to understand the situation. How many Japanese were here? What kind of installation? Where were the patrols? He spent the rest of the day observing, moving carefully, staying hidden. What he found was not good. The island had a small Japanese garrison, maybe 30 soldiers, a radio station, supply depot, probably a refueling stop for patrol boats. Not a major base, but definitely occupied. And the soldiers were alert, patrols every few hours, perimeter security. He could not just walk to the beach and signal for rescue. He would be spotted immediately. Night came. Crawford found a concealed spot in dense jungle. Lay down, tried to rest. But sleep was difficult. Every sound was potential threat. Every rustle could be patrol. He dozed fitfully. Day 2 began with a problem: hunger. He had not eaten since breakfast the previous day on the carrier. His survival pack had emergency rations, but limited. Maybe 3 days' worth if he stretched them. After that, he would need to find food. The island had fruit trees, coconuts, bananas, but they were near the Japanese camp. Going there meant risk of discovery. Crawford decided to wait, see if he could find food elsewhere. He moved through the jungle, looking for anything edible. That afternoon, he encountered the first local, not Japanese, native islander, middle-aged man carrying a basket, walking through the jungle like he owned it. Crawford froze. The man had not seen him yet. Crawford could stay hidden, let him pass, or he could reveal himself, ask for help. Huge risk. The locals might be working with Japanese, might turn him in, but they also might help. Crawford made a choice. He stepped out, hands visible, non-threatening. The man stopped, stared, eyes wide. He'd not expected to find an American pilot in the jungle. Crawford spoke, slowly. "American, pilot, plane crashed, need help." The man did not respond, just stared. Probably did not speak English. Crawford tried gestures, pointed to the sky, made airplane motion with his hands, pointed to himself. The man seemed to understand, nodded slowly. Then the man did something unexpected. He gestured for Crawford to follow, started walking deeper into the jungle, away from the Japanese camp. Crawford hesitated. This could be a trap, leading him to Japanese soldiers, but staying alone in the jungle meant starvation. He had to trust someone. He followed. They walked for 20 minutes to a small village, hidden in the jungle, maybe 15 huts, 50 people, women, children, old men, no Japanese soldiers visible. The man led Crawford to the largest hut, spoke to someone inside. An older man emerged. Gray hair, weathered face, authority figure, village elder probably. The two men spoke. Their language was not Japanese, something else, local dialect. They gestured toward Crawford, discussed. Then the elder approached. He spoke, in broken English. "You, American?" Crawford nodded. "Yes, Navy pilot. My plane was shot down. I need to get back to my ship." The elder studied him, then nodded. "Japanese, here, dangerous. You stay. We hide you." Crawford was stunned. They were offering to help, to hide him from the Japanese. "Why?" he asked. The elder's expression hardened. "Japanese, bad, hurt our people, take our food, we help you. You help us later." Crawford understood. The locals were not allies of the Japanese. They were occupied, coerced. They saw an American pilot as potential hope. Maybe American forces would come. Maybe they would be liberated, so they would help him. Investment in future liberation. Or maybe they were just decent people who saw someone in need and chose to help regardless of politics. Crawford did not know their full motivation, but he accepted the offer. He had no better options. The villagers hid him in a small hut on the edge of the village, gave him food, water, told him to stay quiet, stay out of sight. Japanese patrols came through the village regularly. If they found him, everyone would die. Day 3 brought routine. Crawford stayed in the hut during daytime. Villagers brought him food, fruit, fish, rice. Not much, but enough. At night, he could move around the village slightly, stretch his legs, talk with the few villagers who spoke limited English. He learned about their situation. The Japanese had occupied the island 2 years earlier, took over, used the villagers as labor, made them grow food for the garrison, fish for the soldiers. Anyone who resisted was punished, beaten, sometimes killed. The villagers had learned to comply outwardly while resisting in small ways, hiding food, moving slowly, doing the minimum required. Hiding an American pilot was the biggest act of resistance they had attempted. If discovered, the consequences would be severe. Collective punishment, maybe execution of the entire village. They knew the risk. They chose to help anyway. Crawford asked why. The elder explained through an interpreter, one of the younger villagers who had learned English from missionaries before the war. "We are not Japanese. We are not American. We are people. This is our island. We lived here long before Japanese came. We will live here after they leave. Japanese treat us like slaves, make us afraid. If we help you, maybe you tell Americans. Maybe Americans free us, maybe not. But we help anyway, because it's right thing. Simple morality. Help someone in need. Resist oppressors. Do what is right regardless of consequences." Crawford was humbled. These people risking everything for him, a stranger. Day 4 brought a crisis. Japanese patrol came to the village, larger than usual. 10 soldiers, led by an officer. They were searching for something. Crawford hid in a concealed space beneath the hut, small crawl space, barely big enough, dark, cramped. He lay still, barely breathing, listening to boots overhead, voices shouting, villagers responding in Japanese. The officer was questioning the elder, demanding answers. Had they seen American pilot? Plane had crashed nearby. Pilot was missing. Americans would send rescue. Japanese needed to find the pilot first. If villagers were hiding him, they would all pay. The elder denied knowledge. No American, no plane, just village, fishing, farming, nothing else. The officer did not believe him, ordered a search. Soldiers went hut to hut, looking inside, moving things, checking everywhere. Crawford heard them approaching his hut, boots on the wooden floor above, things being moved, voices getting closer to the crawlspace entrance. His hand went to his survival knife. If they found him, He would fight, take as many as possible, not surrender. But they did not find the crawl space. The concealment was good. Just a slight gap under the floor, covered by woven mat. Unless you knew where to look, you would miss it. The soldiers checked the hut, found nothing, moved on. The search lasted an hour. Soldiers found nothing. The officer was frustrated, threatened the villagers again, warned them that hiding American was death sentence, then left. Crawford stayed in the crawl space until after dark. When he finally emerged, his whole body ached from staying motionless so long. But he was alive. The village was safe. The secret was kept. That night, the elder came to talk. Through the interpreter, he explained the danger had increased. Japanese were actively looking for Crawford. They would search again, more thoroughly. The village could not hide him indefinitely. Crawford needed to leave, get off the island, signal for rescue. The elder offered a solution. There was a small boat, hidden in a cove. The villagers used it secretly. Japanese did not know about it. Crawford could take it, try to reach American lines. Crawford considered this. Small boat, open ocean, long distance to American forces, high risk. But staying was higher risk. Every day increased chance of discovery. He agreed. He would leave tomorrow night. Day 5 was preparation. Villagers gathered supplies, water, food, a chart showing nearby islands, compass. They explained the currents, the winds, best route to take. American forces were island-hopping north. If Crawford sailed east and slightly north, he might encounter American patrol boats or aircraft. Might. No guarantee. But better odds than staying. That afternoon, Japanese patrol returned. Different soldiers, same mission. Find the American pilot. They searched more aggressively this time. Overturned things, demanded villagers gather in the center of the village, counted them, checked everyone. Crawford was hidden in the jungle, watching from concealment. If they took villagers as hostages, he would have to reveal himself. Could not let innocent people die for hiding him. But the Japanese did not take hostages. They threatened, warned, then left. The close call convinced everyone. Crawford had to leave tonight, could not wait any longer. After dark, the elder and 2 young men led Crawford to the hidden cove. The boat was there, small, wooden, sail and oars, basic but seaworthy. The villagers had stocked it with supplies, everything Crawford would need. The elder spoke through the interpreter one last time. You tell Americans. Tell them we helped you. Tell them we are not enemy. We want freedom. You remember us, Crawford promised. He would remember, would tell American command, would make sure they knew about the village, about the help. Then, something unexpected happened. The elder removed a small carved pendant from around his neck, handed it to Crawford. Proof. You show this. Americans know you speak truth. This is from our village, our symbol. Crawford took it, promised to keep it safe, to show American officers, to make sure the village was protected when American forces came. They pushed the boat into the water. Crawford climbed in, raised the small sail, caught the breeze. The boat moved away from shore, into the darkness. The villagers watched from the beach, silent. Then they faded from view. Crawford was alone again, on the ocean, in a small boat, heading toward hope of rescue, or toward death by exposure, sharks, or Japanese patrol boats. The odds were not good, but they were better than staying. Day 6 was all ocean. Crawford sailed east, used the chart, watched for aircraft, any aircraft, American or Japanese. He would take his chances either way. Better to be captured than to drift forever. The sun was brutal, no shade, limited water. He rationed carefully, drank small amounts, tried to stay hydrated without depleting supplies. The heat was exhausting. That afternoon, he saw aircraft, high, fast, too far to identify. He got out his signal mirror, flashed it toward the planes, trying to catch their attention. They did not deviate course, did not see him, or saw him and thought he was Japanese. Either way, they passed. Night brought cooler temperatures, and rain, brief squall. Crawford used a piece of canvas to collect water, filled his canteen, filled a spare container. Rain was blessing, fresh water. He drank deeply. First time in days he was not thirsty. Day 7 began with a problem. The wind died, the sea became glassy calm, the boat stopped moving. Crawford tried rowing, made minimal progress, exhausting work in the heat. He rowed for an hour, then rested, then rowed again, barely advancing. By midday, he was considering his situation. He'd been at sea 2 days since leaving the village, had not seen any American forces, was not sure if he was heading in right direction. Currents might have pushed him off course. He might be sailing parallel to American lines or away from them. He had water for maybe 3 more days, food for 5 if he stretched it. After that, he would be in serious trouble. The ocean was vast. Finding him would be luck more than anything. That afternoon, he heard engines, ship engines. Crawford grabbed his binoculars, scanned the horizon. There, a patrol boat. He could not tell nationality from distance, could be American, could be Japanese. He had to decide, signal and hope it was friendly, or stay hidden and hope it passed. If he signaled and it was Japanese, he would be captured. If he stayed hidden and it was American, he would miss rescue. Crawford decided to signal. He had come this far, taken this many risks. No point in being cautious now. He raised a piece of cloth. White. Surrender flag if Japanese, signal flag if American. He waved it, made himself visible. The boat changed course, coming toward him. As it got closer, Crawford saw the flag. American, U.S. Navy patrol boat. He had been found. The boat pulled alongside. Sailors helped him aboard, gave him water, food, asked what happened. Crawford explained. Plane shot down. Crash landed near island. Villagers hit him, helped him escape. Sailed for 2 days to reach American lines. The patrol boat commander was interested in the village. Location. How many Japanese on the island? What kind of installation? Strategic information. Crawford told him everything, showed him the carved pendant, explained the villagers' request for protection. The commander made notes, said he would pass the information up the chain. American forces were planning operations in that area. The intelligence about Japanese garrison would be useful, and they would note the friendly village. Make sure not to bomb it. Make sure to protect the villagers when American forces arrived. Crawford was taken back to the fleet, debriefed by intelligence officers, medical examination, rest. He was dehydrated, sunburned, had lost weight, but otherwise healthy. He had survived 8 days, 5 on the island, 2 at sea, against significant odds. The debriefing focused on the Japanese installation, numbers, weapons, layout. Crawford drew maps from memory, described patrol patterns, everything he had observed. The intelligence was valuable, confirmed what Americans suspected. The island was minor installation, but still needed to be neutralized. Crawford also emphasized the village, the help they provided, the risks they took. He showed the pendant, explained it was proof of their cooperation, insisted they be protected. The intelligence officers promised to note it, pass the information to operational planners. When American forces took the island, which would happen in next few weeks, they would know about the friendly village, would avoid bombing it, would protect the villagers. Crawford asked if he could be there. When American forces landed, he wanted to see the village liberated, make sure his promise to the elder was kept. The request was denied. He was a pilot, not infantry. He would return to his carrier, resume flight operations, let the Marines handle ground combat. But the officers promised they would follow up, make sure the village was treated well. Crawford had to trust them, had no other choice. He returned to his squadron. His Hellcat was gone. Replacement aircraft was waiting. He was back in the cockpit within a week, flying missions, strafing Japanese positions, supporting Marine landings. 3 weeks after his rescue, American forces landed on his island. The operation went smoothly. Japanese garrison surrendered after brief fight. The island was secured, and the village was protected. Marines received orders to treat the villagers as friendlies, provide medical care, food, protection. Crawford heard about this through official channels. The village had helped an American pilot, had risked everything. American forces honored that. The elder and his people were safe. Crawford requested permission to visit. This time, it was granted. He flew to the island, landed on the hastily built airstrip, went to the village. The elder was there, still alive. The village was intact, no damage from the fighting. The villagers were wary of Americans at first. Then, Crawford showed the pendant. The elder recognized it, recognized Crawford, broke into a smile. They spoke through interpreter, Marine who had learned some of the local language. The elder thanked Crawford for keeping his promise, for protecting the village. Crawford thanked the elder for saving his life. It was an emotional reunion. The villagers had been liberated. No more Japanese occupation, no more forced labor. They were free, and Crawford had survived, had returned, had kept his word. Crawford stayed for a day, helped Marines distribute supplies to the village, talked with villagers, learned more about their lives, their culture, their experience under Japanese occupation. One of the young men who had helped hide him asked about America, what it was like, if villagers could go there. Crawford explained it was complicated, immigration, distance, cost, but maybe someday, after the war. Before leaving, the elder gave Crawford another gift, a woven bracelet, traditional design, symbol of friendship, bond between the village and Crawford. The elder said Crawford was always welcome, part of their community now, blood brother through shared danger. Crawford wore that bracelet for the rest of his life, never took it off. Reminder of the 8 days that changed his perspective on war, on humanity, on the complexity of conflict where people are not simply allies or enemies, but individuals making choices in difficult circumstances. After the war, Crawford tried to stay in contact with the village. Difficult. Mail was unreliable, the island was remote, but he sent letters, packages, tried to help where he could, got occasional responses. The village was rebuilding, slowly modernizing, but keeping their traditions. In 1962, Crawford returned. Tourism was beginning in the Pacific. He arranged trip to the island, found the village. The elder was dead, old age. But his son remembered Crawford, welcomed him, showed him how the village had changed. New buildings, school, clinic, all built with American assistance after the war. Crawford stayed a week, met the children of the people who had saved him, told them the story, showed them the pendant and bracelet, made sure they knew their parents and grandparents had done something brave and important. When he left, the village gave him a carved plaque, names of everyone who had helped him. 16 people risked their lives. He promised to display it, honor their memory. Crawford died in 1987. The plaque was in his study. The pendant and bracelet were with him. In his will, he left instructions. When the time came, return the pendant to the village. It belonged there. But keep the bracelet, bury it with him. Symbol that the bond endured beyond death. His family followed his wishes, sent the pendant back to the island, buried Crawford with the bracelet. The village held ceremony, honored Crawford's memory. He had been outsider who became family, American who understood them, pilot who landed on wrong island and found unexpected humanity. The story became part of village history, passed down through generations. The American pilot who needed help, the villagers who risked everything, the promise kept, the bonds formed. In 2008, the village erected a monument, small stone marker, carved in local language and English. Here, Lieutenant James Crawford found refuge. Here, friendship crossed all boundaries. Here, humanity triumphed over war. Simple memorial, but meaningful. Reminder that in war, the most important stories are often not about battles won or lost, but about human connections made, about people helping each other, about choices to do right thing despite risks. Crawford's 8 days on that island taught him more than any training, more than any briefing. War was not just about killing enemies. It was about understanding that enemies were label, not reality. That underneath the flags and uniforms and politics were people, just people, trying to survive, trying to protect their families, making choices in impossible situations. The villagers had every reason to turn him in. Japanese would have rewarded them, reduced their burdens, made their lives easier. But they chose differently, chose to help, because it was right, because Crawford was human being in need, because resistance to oppression took many forms, and hiding an enemy of their enemy was one form available to them. That choice saved Crawford's life, but it also gave him something more valuable: understanding, perspective, appreciation for the complexity of human experience in war, recognition that our enemies are often victims too, of circumstance, of politics, of forces beyond their control. Crawford spent the rest of his life trying to share that lesson, speaking at schools, veterans groups, anywhere people would listen. He told the story of the village, of the people who saved him, of the humanity he found on the wrong island. Some listeners understood, others did not. War propaganda is powerful. It requires us to see enemies as less than human, to justify killing them, to maintain morale. Crawford's story complicated that narrative, suggested that enemies could be decent people caught in bad situations. That made some people uncomfortable. But Crawford told it anyway, because it was truth, his truth, the village's truth. And truth matters even when uncomfortable, especially when uncomfortable. The 8 days on the wrong island became defining experience of his life. Not the combat missions, not the medals, not the victories, but the days when he was vulnerable, dependent on strangers, surviving through the kindness of people he was supposed to see as enemy collaborators. That dependence created humility, gratitude, understanding that survival in war is often not about individual strength or skill, but about help received, about luck, about the choices others make that we cannot control. The villagers could have killed him, turned him in, ignored him. They chose to help. That choice echoed through decades, shaped lives, created bonds, taught lessons, changed perspectives. Crawford's family still maintains connection with the village. His children have visited, his grandchildren. The relationship continues, not political, not about the war, just human connection that began in crisis and endured through peace. The monument still stands, the story is still told, and every time someone hears it, they learn something important. That in war, the most profound victories are not military. They are moral, human. The victory of compassion over fear, of courage over convenience, of connection over division. Lieutenant James Crawford landed on the wrong island. But in finding help there, he discovered something right, something essential about human nature, that even in the worst circumstances, in the midst of terrible conflict, people can choose kindness, can choose to help, can choose humanity. That is the lesson of the 8 days, not tactics, not strategy, but the simple truth that people matter more than politics, that helping someone in need is right regardless of which side they are on. That humanity transcends the boundaries war tries to impose. The wrong island turned out to be exactly the right place. For Crawford to learn these lessons, for the villagers to demonstrate their courage, for a story to begin that would resonate across generations. War creates many stories. Most are about destruction, death, victory, and defeat. Crawford's story is different. It is about survival through connection, about finding helpers in unexpected places, about promises kept and bonds honored. The village saved one pilot. Crawford helped protect one village. Small actions in vast war. But they mattered. To the people involved, to their families, to everyone who heard the story and understood its meaning. Lieutenant James Crawford, a pilot who landed on the wrong island and found exactly what he needed. Not just survival, but understanding. Not just rescue, but transformation. Not just help, but humanity. 8 days, wrong island, right lessons. That is his legacy. That is their story. That is the truth they shared and the gift they gave to anyone willing to listen and learn. The wrong island, where everything went right. The broader implications of Crawford's experience extended beyond his personal story into military training and cultural understanding programs developed during and after World War II. His detailed debriefing reports became case studies in survival, evasion, resistance, and escape training, what the military calls SEER. Future pilots learn from his experience how to interact with local populations, how to assess whether to trust civilians in enemy territory, how to navigate cultural differences when your life depends on strangers' goodwill. Crawford's 8 days provided real-world example of principles that had previously been theoretical. The Navy incorporated his story into training materials, not just the survival aspects, though those were important, but the cultural dimensions. Crawford succeeded partly because he approached the villagers with respect, did not assume superiority, recognized their agency and humanity. This approach influenced post-war military training about cultural sensitivity. But the story also revealed uncomfortable truths about Allied strategy. The villagers had suffered under Japanese occupation, but they also feared American bombing. They had good reason. American air campaigns did not always distinguish between Japanese military installations and nearby civilian populations. Villages near military targets were collateral damage. Crawford's intervention on the village's behalf prevented that outcome in this specific case, but it raised questions. How many other friendly villages had been bombed because no one knew they were friendly? How many people who might have helped Allied personnel were killed before they had the chance? These questions were rarely asked during the war. The priority was winning. Concerns about collateral damage were secondary. But Crawford's story forced some reflection. His debriefing included strong recommendations about improving intelligence on local populations, better mapping of civilian versus military areas, more careful targeting. Some of these recommendations were implemented. Others were not. War moves fast. Perfect intelligence is impossible. Mistakes happen. The village that helped Crawford was lucky. Lucky he crashed there. Lucky he survived. Lucky he could advocate for them. Most villages did not have such advocates. This randomness bothered Crawford. Why should his village be protected while others were bombed? The only difference was his presence. That seemed arbitrary, unjust. He pushed for broader changes, better procedures for identifying and protecting friendly civilian populations throughout the Pacific. He had limited influence, junior officer, no policy-making authority, but he wrote reports, made recommendations, spoke to anyone who would listen. Some listened, some ignored him. Such is military bureaucracy. After the war, Crawford became advocate for Pacific Islanders more broadly. He joined organizations working on decolonization, self-determination, economic development. His experience on the island had given him perspective that few Americans had. He had lived with Pacific Islanders, depended on them, learned from them. He understood they were not helpless natives needing Western guidance. They were people with their own cultures, values, and capabilities. This perspective was not common among Americans in the 1940s and 50s. Racial attitudes were different. Colonialism was still accepted. The idea that Pacific Islanders should control their own destinies was radical. Crawford was not radical by temperament. He was career naval officer, conservative in many ways. But his 8 days had changed him. He could not see Pacific Islanders as inferior after they had saved his life through courage and competence. That personal experience overrode abstract prejudices. He testified before Congress in 1951 about Pacific territories, argued for more local autonomy, better economic support, recognition of indigenous rights. His testimony carried weight. War hero, Navy officer, not easily dismissed as radical or naive. Some of his recommendations were adopted, not all, not even most. But his voice added to growing chorus arguing for changes in how America treated its Pacific territories and partners. Small contribution to larger movement, but contribution nonetheless. Meanwhile, the village he had stayed in was navigating post-war changes. Japanese occupation ended, but that did not mean independence. The island became part of trust territory administered by United States. Different occupier, different methods, but still external control. The villagers had mixed feelings. Americans were better than Japanese in many ways, less brutal, more respectful, brought resources and aid. But they were still outsiders making decisions about the island's future. The villagers wanted self-governance, control of their own land, their own destiny. Crawford supported this, used his connections to advocate for the village, for the island, for eventual independence or at least autonomous governance. It was a long process. Decolonization moved slowly. But Crawford stayed engaged, visited when he could, wrote letters, maintained pressure on bureaucrats and politicians. In 1978, the island achieved self-governing status, not full independence, still associated with the United States, but significant autonomy, local elected government, control over internal affairs. The villagers participated in their own governance. Crawford attended the ceremony. Now 60 years old, retired from Navy, but still connected to the island. The new governor, who had been a child when Crawford stayed in the village, thanked him publicly, acknowledged his advocacy, his support, his friendship. It was an emotional moment. The journey from hiding in a hut from Japanese patrols to standing on a stage watching the island celebrate autonomy had taken 34 years. Crawford felt he had helped keep his promise, not just protecting the village during the war, but supporting their long-term interests, their right to self-determination. The relationships Crawford formed during those 8 days created a network that lasted lifetimes. He helped villagers who wanted to study in America, wrote recommendation letters, provided contacts. Some came to the United States for education, others stayed on the island but maintained correspondence with Crawford. One young man who had been teenager during Crawford's stay became teacher, taught local history, made sure students knew the story of the American pilot and the village's role. The story became part of local curriculum, not glorification of war. but example of their ancestors' courage, their agency, their ability to make choices that mattered. Another child from the village became nurse, worked at the clinic that had been built with American aid after the war. She credited Crawford's advocacy for the clinic's existence. He had pushed American authorities to provide medical support. The clinic served the island for decades, saved countless lives. These ripple effects from 8 days in May 1944 were impossible to fully calculate. Crawford's survival depended on the village. The village's post-war experience was shaped partly by Crawford's advocacy. The next generation benefited from resources and autonomy that might not have come without someone arguing for them. Cause and effect in history is never simple. The island would have eventually achieved some autonomy with or without Crawford, but his involvement probably accelerated it, made the process smoother, ensured the village specifically benefited from American support. Crawford never claimed credit, always deflected, said he was just repaying debt. The villagers saved his life. Helping them was obligation, not charity. But the villagers saw it differently. He did not owe them continued support for decades. He gave it anyway, because he valued the relationship, because he cared about their welfare, because the 8 days had created genuine connection. This mutual respect and affection was evident whenever Crawford visited. Not formal, not ceremonial, just old friends reconnecting, sharing meals, telling stories, updating each other on family news. The war that brought them together faded into background. The relationship it created remained foreground. Crawford's wife accompanied him on several visits. She'd been skeptical initially. Her husband's attachment to this remote village seemed strange. But after meeting the villagers, seeing their warmth toward Crawford, understanding the history, she became supporter. She and Crawford hosted visitors from the island, showed them American hospitality, returned the generosity shown to Crawford in May 1944. The cultural exchange went both ways. Crawford learned about Pacific Island traditions, navigation by stars, fishing techniques, social structures, community decision-making. The villagers learned about America, not just from Crawford but through him. He was their window into American culture, just as they were his window into theirs. This exchange was educational for both sides. Crawford returned from each visit with deeper appreciation for Pacific Island culture. The villagers gained understanding of America beyond what they saw in movies or military bases. Real people, real relationships, not stereotypes or propaganda. When Crawford's children were young, he told them stories about the island, about the people who saved him, made sure his children understood that their father owed his life to strangers who became family. That lesson about human kindness shaped his children's values. They grew up with broader perspective than many American children of that era. One of Crawford's sons became anthropologist, studied Pacific Island cultures. His father's stories had sparked his interest. He visited the island multiple times for research, wrote respectfully about the culture, maintained the relationship his father had established. The connection continued into the third generation. This intergenerational bond was unusual. Most wartime connections faded quickly. People moved on, lost contact. But Crawford and the village maintained and deepened their relationship across decades, partly because both sides valued it, partly because Crawford worked to maintain it. Regular correspondence, periodic visits, continuing advocacy. The village reciprocated. When Crawford faced health problems in his 70s, the village sent traditional healer to visit him in America. The trip was expensive. The village pooled resources to send her. She stayed 2 weeks, performed traditional healing rituals, provided companionship, reminded Crawford he had family on the island who cared about him. This gesture moved Crawford deeply. They had saved his life in 1944. 40 years later, they were still trying to help him, still caring for him as one of their own. The bond had endured not from obligation, but from genuine affection. When Crawford died in 1987, the village held memorial ceremony. Even though his body was in America, they honored him in their tradition, spoke his name, celebrated his life, mourned his passing, then added him to their ancestral stories. The American pilot who became their brother. His family sent representatives to the ceremony. Crawford's son, the anthropologist, attended. His grandchildren came. They participated in the rituals, honored their father's wishes, continued the relationship. The village presented Crawford's family with final gift, genealogy scroll. In their tradition, Crawford had become part of their family. The scroll documented this, showed his place in their family tree, honorary but real. His descendants were considered related, welcome always, part of the extended family. This was highest honor the village could give, integration into family structure. Crawford was not just friend or ally, he was family. And in their culture, family obligations were sacred and eternal. Crawford's family accepted this honor with humility, committed to maintaining the relationship. The anthropologist's son visited regularly, brought his children, taught them the language, the customs, made sure the fourth generation knew their honorary Pacific Island family. This ongoing relationship became itself historically significant. Scholars studying Pacific American relations examined it as case study. How do relationships formed in crisis transition to peacetime? What sustains them across generations? What can we learn about cross-cultural connection from this example? The answers were complex. Several factors contributed. Crawford's personal commitment, his refusal to see the relationship as merely historical, his active maintenance of ties, but also the village's reciprocation, their welcoming of Crawford as family, their investment in the relationship. Both sides had to work at it. Relationships do not maintain themselves, especially across vast distances and cultural differences. It required effort, resources, commitment. Both sides provided these because both sides valued the connection. But there was something more, something less tangible, genuine affection born from shared experience. Crawford and the villagers had faced death together. That created bond that transcended normal friendship. They had trusted each other when trust meant life or death. That kind of trust does not disappear with time. Modern military programs studying civil-military relations and cultural intelligence continue to reference Crawford's story. It demonstrates best practices for interacting with local populations. Respect, reciprocity, long-term thinking. Not just using people for immediate tactical advantage, but building genuine relationships. These lessons remain relevant. American military still operates globally, still depends on local populations for intelligence, support, and cooperation. Crawford's example shows how to do this well. How to create relationships that benefit both sides, how to honor commitments, how to maintain connections beyond immediate military necessity. The story also teaches about gratitude. Crawford never forgot what the village did for him, never took it for granted, spent decades showing appreciation through action, not just words, but sustained commitment. This model of gratitude has educational value beyond military context. In broader terms, Crawford's experience illustrates how individual actions during war can have long-lasting peacetime consequences. His 8 days hiding in the village were a tiny moment in vast global conflict, but they initiated relationships and advocacy that shaped post-war developments for the island. This micro-level impact contrasts with macro-level historical narratives that focus on battles, leaders, and grand strategy. Crawford's story reminds us that history is also made by individuals making choices in specific circumstances. The village chose to help. Crawford chose to advocate. These choices mattered. The monument on the island says friendship crossed boundaries. That phrase captures essential truth. In war, we construct boundaries. Nation against nation, ally versus enemy, us and them. Crawford's experience demonstrated these boundaries are artificial. Human connection transcends them when we allow it. The villagers saw American pilot in need. They could have seen enemy, threat, opportunity for reward from Japanese occupiers. They chose to see human being needing help. That choice to transcend artificial boundaries created everything that followed. Crawford reciprocated, could have seen the villagers as simple islanders, primitive people who happened to help him. Instead, he saw them as fully human, complex, worthy of respect and support, deserving of advocacy. His choice to transcend prejudices created lasting positive impact. Both sides had to cross boundaries, cultural, linguistic, political. The crossing was not easy, required trust, courage, willingness to see beyond surface differences to shared humanity underneath. But they did it, and the results enriched all involved. This is perhaps the ultimate lesson. Boundaries between people are real. Language, culture, history create genuine differences, but they need not prevent connection. With effort, respect, and goodwill, boundaries can be crossed, connections can be made, relationships can flourish. Crawford landed on the wrong island, but through crossing boundaries with the villagers who helped him, he found something profoundly right. Understanding across difference, friendship across division, family across race and nationality and culture. 8 days in May 1944 initiated this crossing. 7 decades of maintained relationship completed it. The story is not really about the war. The war was just context. The story is about human connection, about people choosing to help each other, about relationships built on mutual respect and sustained through mutual commitment. Lieutenant James Crawford, the villagers of a small Pacific island, connected by crisis, bound by choice, family by honor. Their story continues through descendants, through scholars who study it, through anyone who learns the lessons it teaches. The wrong island, where a pilot found not just refuge, but transformation, where villagers demonstrated not just courage, but humanity, where 8 days became foundation for 7 decades of relationship, where boundaries were crossed and something beautiful was built on the other side. That is the complete story. Not just survival, not just rescue, but connection, understanding, love that transcends artificial divisions. The kind of story that redeems some small piece of war's horror by showing human capacity for kindness even in darkness. The monument stands, the story lives, the lessons remain. And somewhere, descendants of a pilot and villagers who met in war continue relationships begun in crisis and sustained through peace. Wrong island, right story. Perfect example of humanity's capacity to choose connection over division, to build bridges across boundaries, to honor commitments across time, to love across difference. That is the legacy. That is the gift. That is the truth of the 8 days and the 7 decades that followed. May we all learn from it.